welcome to today's video. I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about the Shatter Me series. I'll be giving a whole review, my thoughts and everything since I finished reading the series and all that, especially because this is a very popular series in the book talk, booktube community. I wanted to see if it's worth the hype, is it something you should read and all that. So I'm going to structure this with like a review of the series, no spoilers or anything like that. I'll also be talking about the order of the books because these 6 books actually aren't all the books in the series. There's also an additional 5 novellas that are in between the books, and so that means there's a total of 11 books. So she's a really big series, but honestly it's not too bad once you get into it because it's really interesting and it makes you want to read more. So I'll be doing that, and also at the end I'll do a short little like spoiler section if you've read this series or if you're interested. I don't think it'll be too long, but I just wanted to share some thoughts of some spoilers and some of my thoughts on some of the things that will probably spoil it if you watch. So yeah, super excited. We're gonna get into it because I really don't want this to be too long. So first, just a quick little background. I actually read the Shatter Me series like 10 years ago when it first came out. It was originally a trilogy, so I read the first 3 books a while back. I honestly didn't remember most of what had happened, so even though I was rereading it, it didn't feel like it because I was still like just surprised by things that I completely forgot. After I read the 3rd book, it was supposed to be completed, but the author Tara Mafi, she decided to come out with an additional 3 books afterwards, and I was so content with how it ended that I didn't continue reading it when I was younger. But now I was like, hey, let me just go ahead and read the whole series through and see my thoughts. There's a big difference between the first 3 books and the last 3 books, but we'll discuss all of that later. First, I want to read the back of the first book, Shatter Me, so we can see what it's about. So this is the first book. All of the covers have a picture of an eye with the very intricate background and design around it, which I think is really pretty. If you want to see me do a reading vlog of this book, I actually did it about a month ago, so if you are interested and want to see me do a reading vlog for it, watch that video. Let's continue on. Anyway, so it says, no one knows why Juliet's touch is fatal, but the reestablishment has plans for her. Plans to use her as a weapon, but Juliet has plans of her own. After a lifetime without freedom, she's finally discovering a strength to fight back for the very first time and to find a future with the one boy she thought she'd lost forever. They gave not too much information, but enough for us to work with. The whole series is a dystopian fantasy series, so we have dystopian aspects like the society is very different than our world today. The government is very messed up, very similar like our world today. But also we have Juliet, like it said, she has a fatal touch. We do see some magical power aspect being used in this series. So in this society, the whole world is pretty much controlled by the reestablishment, which is the ruler or whatever. There are supreme commanders of every continent except Antarctica. They pretty much rule the whole world. So you don't have control over your job, religion, freedom of speech. The government is destroying books, trying to destroy history, so people don't get any ideas of standing up for themselves. Animals are dying, vegetation is dying, the sky is always a constant gray, birds no longer fly. Like everything is very messed up in this world. They're even trying to erase language so that there's only one universal language. So in every aspect of life today is pretty much different in this society. And so we first meet Juliet in an asylum which she has been living in for almost a year. So like it said in the back of the book, her touch is fatal. Pretty much if someone touches her, they have extreme pain, like she's sucking the life out of them, and if they touch her for too long, they can die. So you know, she's quirky, but yeah, clearly she's not like other girls. So then they lock her up. She's been just in solitary confinement for the past 200 something days. We get to know some of her thoughts, and eventually, like the back of the book says, the reestablishment decides that they have plans for her and would like to use her as a weapon. So we gradually see her move from the asylum to this one place called Sector 45. The whole continents are pretty much broken up into sectors, which I guess are kind of like states. And so in Sector 45, we get to follow her and see what their plan is for her, see her journey with that. There's also love aspects in this, of course, but I don't want to give you too much information because I don't want to spoil anything. But there's a love triangle in this series, which I love. Like I cannot read a book without some romance. It is very interesting writing, and it is between two guys who are very different than each other. Anytime I see online people talking about their book boyfriends, one of the guys in this is like a top tier book boyfriend for a lot of people. It is very interesting to read. So I rated the first book a 5-star just because I was so like in love with the story. It wasn't boring at all. I read it really quickly. Also, the writing in this I really enjoyed. I will say a lot of people have had criticisms and said that this book was very Wattpad-y, which I understand. There were some aspects where it just seemed too descriptive that it didn't really make sense, I felt like. And also the author really likes to talk about eyes and describe eyes, like the whole like green orb situation. So that can kind of get redundant and a little bit annoying, but overall I thought this was very beautifully written, and I never read something like a romance that I felt like put that much thought into writing. It seemed very poetic and I really appreciated that. Anyways, like I said, if you want to know more information about this, watch my reading vlog. Also, I want to bring out a point. You can buy all 6 of these books for like $30-something on Amazon. I'm gonna put the link down below. That's pretty affordable for books, if I'm being honest. So I would 1000% hop on this if you are interested. And I read all of the novellas online for free. So I'm also gonna put the link if you want to read the novellas in the description if you're trying to save your coin but you're really interested in it. I got you, girl. Anyways, we're gonna move over to the novella. So the first novella is called Destroy Me, which I read online, and it surrounds the point of view of one of our love interests. It takes place directly after the first book, and we get to know a lot more about him. Okay, so some people, they say that you don't really have to read the novellas in order to enjoy the story, which I'm sure, but I 1000% recommend you guys read the novellas because, in my opinion, you cannot have an opinion about who Juliet should end up with until you read the novellas, because we're literally getting inside their brain and knowing them deeper and more personally. Like, I don't want to hear if you're team X or team Y unless you read the novellas, because then your opinion doesn't matter to me. This is very important. Like, there's so much important information in order to get to know these characters and these love interests that you would not know if you just read the books. I like to do research. Like, if I'm gonna be on someone's team, I gotta know everything I can get. So read the novellas. It's very important. You get to know a lot of information that is crucial to form your opinion. Anyways, let's get back to Destroy Me. So Destroy Me is a very short novella. It revolves around one of the love interests, and we get to know more about him, which was very eye-opening for me. And you're like, shoot, maybe I didn't know what I actually thought I knew. Like, you think you know everything about this person until you read the novella. So I rated that also 5-star. I was still in this high. I was really enjoying this series. First book 5-star, first novella 5-star, then the second book is called Unravel Me. I don't want to really talk too much about the contents of the story because if you don't know the first book, then I'm gonna spoil everything if I say what this is about. But in terms of quality and my rating, I rated this book a 4 stars just because it is, first of all, a lot thicker than the first book, if you can see the difference there. And so I felt like in this book it was kind of boring. Like, most of the book was kind of just like a lot of Juliet dwelling on like her relationship problems, and I was kind of like, girl, we're in a war. Like, I feel like you're kind of tuned out of the station. Like, there are bigger problems going on, and kind of frustrating to me. And there's also this one secret in this book that they mentioned early on, and we don't find out until way too long, and it was just like a lot of back and forth, miscommunication, and I was like, huh? Like, I was getting bored. But we do get closer to this one character. His name's Kenji, and he ended up being my favorite character in the entire series. I love Kenji so much. He's pretty much this comedic relief character. He's so funny. I feel like anytime authors have a comedic relief character, a lot of times they just say stupid stuff, cringy stuff, annoying stuff, and yes, he does say like some annoying stuff or whatever, but he is still so funny to me. And he also has like more dimension to him. He is serious when he has to be. He's reliable as heck, and he is the one who told Juliet, girl, we're in a war. Why are you crying about your boyfriend? Like, it was really relieving for him to do that and like snap some sense into her, because I was like getting annoyed. And then when he said that, I was like, okay, me and Kenji are on the same page. And I felt like in a lot of ways I relate to Kenji, just because first of all, he uses humor to cope with hard stuff, which I have always done, and he's also has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders and just more to the jokes, I felt like. And I just really loved, honestly, learning about Kenji. But yeah, I only rated this a 4-star just because of the beginning. I was getting bored and it took me longer to finish this than in the first book. So I still really liked it. And then towards the end, stuff started to happen. So we got that. Then next we have the second novella, which is called Fracture Me. This has the POV of the other love interest. Just like how in the first novella we get to learn so much more about this character, we do the same thing with the second novella. We get to learn so much about this love interest that probably gave a lot of people their conclusion of which side they're actually on. In the first book, I feel like, you know, we have our assumptions and we think we know something, but then in these novellas we get just so much more information and you're like, wow, I'm really glad that we have these like different perspectives. So yeah, it takes place right after the second book and then we get to know that character and then we move on to book number 3. Okay, so book number 3 is Ignite Me, and this is by far my favorite cover in the entire series. It is so beautiful. And like I said earlier, this was supposed to be the conclusion of the trilogy. It was supposed to end with this. I remember being a kid and being like, okay, I really like how this series ended. I don't want to keep reading the series whenever I found out it came out with more, because I guess I just am the type of kid and also adult now that I can't handle just too much suspense and anxiety. Like, I have too much already anxiety in my real life, so books are supposed to be my escapism. So I was scared, I guess, as a kid to continue on. And I think I also had PTSD from Divergent because we already know how that ended and I was like, you're joking. So I didn't want that to happen with this series. I didn't want Teramafi to get any ideas, so I just stuck with this book. But I will say, reading this as an adult, I don't know how I felt like I was content with this. I felt like reading this as an adult, I have so many questions. Like, there's a lot of unanswered stuff, and also I didn't like how it ended. It felt very rushed and quick, and I was like, I feel like we have 3 books and 2 novellas to get to this point, and then when we reach it, it was so anticlimactic. I was like, I feel like we should have gotten more. Like, it just seemed like a quick little thing, honestly. If it ended like this, I would have had a different opinion of the entire series. I rated this though a 4.5 just because reading through it, it was very fast paced for me. It wasn't boring like the second book. I was going through it pretty fast and I was staying engaged. Though, in this book got me mad with one of the characters. He completely changed and I got very upset with the things that he said. Like, one character in the first book is completely psychotic, but I kind of like it. But in this book, a different character is very psychotic and I'm like, whoa, major ick, you're disgusting. But yeah, 4.5, still good, not the best. I know some people say this is their favorite book and I can see why. It's still very good, but just not the conclusion I wanted, and that's why I took off some points. Okay, next we have Restore Me. This is the 4th book of the series. I remember when I finished the 3rd book, I was thinking like, how are we going to continue the series? Because I felt like it was kind of, I don't know, like we had everything allegedly concluded in the 3rd book, so I was like, I didn't know where this was heading, and this pretty much threw a lot of curveballs. It shook me. There's so many plot twists in this book that explains a lot that's mentioned in the first 3 books, which I felt like was actually very good. I know that some people have a mix of opinions of like, oh, like they feel like maybe the author completely changed the direction of the story, or they changed things that they already thought were one way into something else, but I thought it was actually kind of genius. The fact that she concluded the series, right, and then decided to continue on and made this book, and then still somehow went and explained things further and tied everything together, still I felt like it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I rated this a 5-star, really enjoyed it. Then after Restore Me, we have Shadow Me, which is Kenji's point of view. We get to know a little bit more about him. Honestly, like I said, Kenji's my favorite character, so I really liked getting to know him, and just his humor is really nice and really funny, and he just has some heartbreaking aspects to him as well. Like, he sometimes doesn't always want to have a smile on his face, but he does so anyways, and he chooses every day to be happy and be grateful for things, which I just really loved. So Shadow Me was definitely a nice book to read. Rated at 5 stars, no surprise there. Then we move on to the 5th book, which is Defy Me. I don't like this cover at all. I feel like it was probably the worst cover, but dare I say it might be my favorite book? I don't know. If I thought that book 4 had a lot of curveballs and plot twists, this really took the cake. So many crazy things happened. It was just a non-stop fast pace. It's not a very long book at all, which thank God, because my anxiety when I read this, I finished this in a couple hours, guys. Like, not even a full day. I just went from morning to whatever and read this book in one sitting, and it was so so good. Curveball after curveball, things that you thought were normal aren't normal anymore. I thought it was really good, ingenious, but again, I can see why some people thought it was like kind of crazy. I rated it a 5-star. I thought it was very interesting, and we get some dual point of views, which first 3 books we don't have dual point of views, they're all Juliet, but in the last 3 books we definitely start switching between different characters, which is really nice. And with this book, it was also very like refreshing to see, and I enjoyed that without having to wait for a novella to know what so-and-so character is thinking. But this was crazy. 5 stars. Reveal Me, again, another novella, Kenji's point of view, and I rated it 5 stars. I don't know if that's any surprise. It happens right after the 5th book, and like I'll just read anything about Kenji. So yeah, moving on. The last book is Imagine Me. Not a huge fan of this cover, but it'll do. This book was also very crazy. I felt like it was still also moving fast-paced. There wasn't a lot of like boring parts, at least for me. We do have a lot of different point of views in this book as well, which is always very fun for me. I feel like whenever there's no boring parts and it's just like suspense on suspense, I read it really quickly. There was a few shortcomings that I will talk about more in the spoiler section, but I'll also add that this book I feel like was kind of disturbing in a lot of aspects. Like there were some things that happened that I was kind of like, that's really weird, and we didn't really have that vibe in the first few books, but we're here, so I'm just gonna go with it. But I rated this a 4 stars just because I felt like the end also was kind of weird. Like I feel content enough. Yeah, I just feel like when you have so many like curveballs and plot twists, sometimes it can be maybe difficult to wrap it all up in a certain way, or at least to everyone's expectations. And I'm not saying that it didn't meet my expectations, but I guess it didn't meet my expectations. I don't know. Like it wasn't bad. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't bad. I feel happy that like the craziness that was going on finally calmed down and then we got a conclusion. Like I feel like a lot of things were answered, but I just think I would have done it a little bit differently. But we'll discuss that more in the last novella that came out, and that was called Believe Me. And so Believe Me is taking place in one of the love interests' point of view. Now that I think about it, I don't know how much detail I can go into this without spoiling it, but it felt very weird just because it was full of miscommunication and him stressing out about things and not understanding why she is doing certain things. At the end, it all gets cleaned up and the misunderstandings are fixed and everything's good and dandy. So like I kind of wanted to know the reason why she came out with this novella. Like it could have been different, I guess. I would rate Believe Me a 3.5 just because I felt like it was kind of pointless. Like what was the point of it? And it could have ended a little bit better. I don't know. So yeah, if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about, then stay tuned for the spoiler section. But overall, I really enjoyed this series. I feel like it's a really good series. It has action and romance and fantasy elements to it. Dystopian fiction is also really fun for me. In terms of spice, there's no spice. It's just fade to black. But the last book, Believe Me, the novella, there is actually some spice, which was very interesting, like very minimal, like 1 or 2 scenes I think that was just like using more description than normal, which I guess makes sense because Juliet is 17. I don't know if I said this, but she's 17 and I would feel really uncomfortable reading that if she's 17. But later on in the books she turns 18, so I guess it's a free-for-all. But yeah, I wouldn't really worry about that at all if you don't care for it. I feel like the story was there, the plot was there, the writing was there. Definitely got a lot better and felt less Wattpad-y for me in my opinion. Overall, I think I would rate this series like a 4 stars. Not like the best book ever, but still really good, and I definitely enjoyed it and I would recommend it to you guys. I feel like for the most part, like it starts off super strong and then in the middle it's also very strong, but I just sometimes have expectations that not everybody can reach, I guess. I don't know. I don't think how it ended tainted my view of it. I think it could have been like the best series and it could have been a 5 out of 5 and all that. Like it had so much potential, but I just felt like in some parts there were a lot of shortcomings. So anyways, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. If you have recommendations for different series, let me know. If you read this series, let me know your thoughts and I'll see you in my next video. But if you want to hear the spoilers, then stay tuned and we'll talk a little bit more about that. First of all, Warner was psycho in the first book and the second book, and I remember writing in my like review on my Notion page, I was like, I know she chooses him because I read the book before, but I couldn't remember why. But just knowing the novella and his point of view was very eye-opening, and I really like him. I also really like his personality and how he's very meticulous and clean and all that. I think it's really interesting to read about. When I read Ignite Me and reading about Adam, I was like, that's disgusting. Like he was crazy. I sympathize a little bit because like he was in love with her or whatever, but like the fact that he didn't even care if she lived or died, was ready to feed her to the wolves, like ew, did not like that at all. He was giving major ick. In book 4, when they started talking all about like Emmeline or Emmeline, whatever her name is, and then Juliet's real name is Ella, I was like, what? I was not expecting that. The architect and the executioner, the builder, the destroyer, that was very, very interesting. I would be interested to read again the first 3 books to get to know Anderson a little bit more, to see if there's any discrepancies with that explanation, because I honestly don't remember, but I think it adds up. The reason why I didn't like the ending of the series so much was just because I felt like it was weird how Warner tried to jog Juliet's memory back, like kind of just like seducing her. Like I was kind of like, this is kind of weird. Like I wouldn't have done that. Like I just felt like it was weird to read. I don't know, like I see where she was going for and she did it, but I just felt like that was kind of weird, not gonna lie. And then also like with the ending in Believe Me, like they were supposed to get married. This is supposed to be the wedding book, but there was no wedding. It was just Warner stressing out about Juliet for whatever reason, and then she's walking down the aisle and then that's it. That's all we get. Like, I'm just stressed out the whole book and then it's a misunderstanding and then she's walking down the aisle. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to see maybe more of a happy ending, maybe see him kiss the bride. I don't know, something. But I don't know, it just wasn't giving what I wanted it to give. But I will say that I really like the, dare I say, budding friendship between Warner and Kenji, because I love them. Like, the jokester and the serious guy, and like Warner having like anxiety and wanting Kenji to walk with him down the aisle. Like, oh, that was so sweet. And like I just really liked what she did there. Literally my favorite character, so love to see it. I don't know if I would consider Warner like one of my top book boyfriends, but he's up there. I don't know, there are some parts where like I get it, he's desperate for her. There were some parts like in the book 3, like Juliet was kind of like, hey, let's go slow, and then he's like, don't want to fit, kind of, because she's like just got out of a breakup and is trying to go slow, you know what I mean? But he kind of is a little bit throwing a fit because she doesn't want him the way he wants her yet. So I was kind of like, chill out, my bro. But yeah. In book 3, Juliet kills Anderson, allegedly. He's not really dead. He comes back because he got some stuff from the girls who heal stuff. And then I was confused because in the last book, there wasn't really a conclusion. Like, did we see his dead body? Do we know he's really dead? Like, we know that he took Adam's blood or something that cancels out powers. And I'm assuming like him taking Adam's stuff canceled out his healing ability. But we didn't see like the conclusion of this man dying. He's the one who's been causing all this suffering, and it's just like him using his last breath to tell Juliet to kill Warner and like all that. But I didn't feel like we really got the satisfaction to see him die. Like, he's come out from the dead before. Like, where's the confirmation? Like, I didn't feel like there was really any of that, so that was kind of annoying for me. I felt like it was kind of the same situation as the 3rd book that I had. Like, we were fighting this man for books and books and books, but then when he finally is man down, we get nothing. So that was lame, not gonna lie, but you know, love Warner, so. Ooh, another good point. In the last few books, Kenji and Castle have some type of tension going on. We see that Kenji has like a hard time grappling with the fact that Castle knew about Juliet's identity this whole time, but didn't tell Kenji. And so after Restore Me, Kenji started feeling weird. He started feeling off. The relationship was weird. And then we didn't really get any resolution for that. We didn't get a conclusion for that. It's just like they have this beautiful father-son type relationship, and then there's cracks, and then we don't really solve that. And I'm like, you're doing kind of them and us a little bit of a disservice to not see them get back together and be happy again and fix whatever miscommunication that they had. Like, that bothered me a lot, and I wish that we could have seen more. Like, can we get the boys back together? Like, I'm sure they're gonna be fine, but like, I don't appreciate like when like certain things are mentioned but we never get like a conclusion for it, or it's kind of like, for what? Like, what was the point of doing that, I guess? Like, if we're not gonna see if they're gonna get back together or not, if they're gonna mend a relationship or not. So yeah, I like that we get more of a concrete plan of what the future is looking like and what they're aiming to do, but I don't know, I felt like it didn't hit the way I wanted. At least let them kiss the bride, you know what I mean? Like, but I think it's kind of hilarious that Kenji is gonna be their neighbor and how Warner gets annoyed by them and all that. Oh, and then also Warner like blowing out his birthday candles for the first time really like pulled out the heartstrings, because his dad, talk about daddy issues, bro. Anyways, I think that's all. I feel like I talked for quite a while. Thank you guys so much for watching this video if you made it this far. I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!